Hello, hello, hello. Anthony here with another SPG Legion video for Magic the Gathering standard format. I've got a mono black control list here for you with the all-star card being Lich's Mastery. So this card is freaking wild. When I first lay eyes on it, I was like, I gotta make this card work. Now I haven't figured out how to break it just yet, to like really go OP with it, but I have put together this deck, which I hope you like, because I know I have. I love smashing control face. I love fighting against that money blue-white decks and then just winning because they have no way to really answer Lich's Mastery. So, yeah, let's go over the deck real quick, and hopefully you guys enjoy it as much as I do. So in terms of removal, we've got the typical package. We've got 4 Fatal Pushes, 2 Vraska's Contempt, and yeah, that's just, I mean, I would go up more Vraska's Contempts if I had more money, but I just don't. So just the 2 Vraska's Contempt is all right. Fatal Push is essential against Lawnmower Elves, against all the early plays, just to shut them down and give yourself some time, because this deck really wants to get to the mid and late game. So, anything you can do to buy yourself time to get there is what we're going to do to get there. So, other kinds of removal, we've got the Walk the Plank in the sideboard. It's just my answer to big threats that, such as like, I don't know, Galta, Lyra. It's just a big creature answer. So it's 2 mana, it's sorcery speed, there is some problems with it, but it's cheap and it answers pretty much anything. Like, okay, yeah, no Merfolk, but you're not going to have problems with Merfolk. I haven't had any problems with them yet. I mean, not only have they kind of disappeared from the standard format, but they're just not that big and scary. And when they are, there's many of them going wide as opposed to going like one and tall, like a blue-white deck going Lyra, going like the one big creature tall, or the, Galta and what have you, Glorybringer, etc. So, Block the Plank in the sideboard only. Basically, I pull it in against the decks when they have big creatures to be answered, and I don't think that just 2 copies of Vraska's Contempt is enough. We've got the 1 Essence Extraction also in the sideboard. I was main decking it for a while, but it only really shines against aggro because I end up finding myself holding on to it and keeping it to fight the aggro matchups, and it's only shine there. So obviously gaining life is relevant for that, but it's super relevant for Lich's Mastery. So just the one of, so then that way when you play against other, whatever deck you face, if you happen to pull it in after your sideboard, early game, it's a good answer to creatures, gets you some life, gets you to that later game, and then late game, if you draw, you're gaining 3 life, which will hopefully draw you 3 cards as well with Lich's Mastery. Great card for that kind of stuff. Next, we've got a Never to Return also in the sideboard. Now, Never to Return has done good and bad, which is why it's gotten its place in the sideboard. So it's a great Planeswalker creature answer. It does do well against Scarab God even, because if you have enough mana, you can just like never and then return the same Scarab God out of the game. So it's done work on that side, but it's also been slow. It's a 3 mana sorcery removal, so that's why it's in the sideboard. So if they have like heavy Planeswalkers, then I'll bring it in, but other than that, it goes into the sideboard. And the last removal piece we have is actually hiding over here, Battle at the Bridge. Now, I was on the fence with this, but it actually does work. It does work against Ronus. -X, destroying indestructible stuff is great, and gaining life is also great. And you'll see later that we actually have a small artifact package, so it actually can be further enabled with those and do some work for you. And especially as a one-of, it shows up into the mid and late game, and then hopefully you have Lich's Mastery. And again, all of these cards really like to have Lich's Mastery, but even if you don't, then they'll just help you get to that mid and late game where you should have hopefully drawn it by now. So yeah, that's the removal package as a whole. We also have a discard package. I mean, discard is probably Black's greatest asset in terms of fighting against control. I mean, when something says, remove a non-creature, that's every other kind of type, right? So this just really does a lot of work. So I have the 1 main deck because you don't always have a opportunity to hit. Like, creatures are just more prominent in the format, but just the 1 of in the main deck, and then 3 sideboard against the control matchups, because it's kind of our only answer to enchantments, artifacts, counter spells, removal spells. It's kind of like the answer to all of those things. So full play set of them in the deck. We also have the couple Doomfalls. Now, I had toyed with them in just one main deck, and that's it. One main deck, one sideboard, but they did so well and were so useful that I've actually gone 2 main deck, and I might even go 3 because, it's a bit slow, 3 mana for a discard, but at least it hits anything. And secondly, it acts as a removal for creature when needed. So, it's not always ideal. They might have a chump sacrifice fodder to get hit by Doomfall, but if they do, you might have another removal like Fatal Push and then Doomfall. So pretty good combo there, and it does work, so the versatility is great. So it's made it as a 2-of in this deck. The last kind of discard we've got is actually Lost Legacy in the sideboard. This is just a combo hate card. It is a strategy hate card. So if you face against blue-white and you're just like, I'm fed up of the counterspell, I'm fed up of Teferi, I'm fed up of Torrential Gear Hog, it's a good answer to those cards. It's also a good answer to just like certain janks. Like, there's this cycling discard deck with Drakehaven that's been running around, and when I lost Legacy in Drakehaven, wow, did that deck do poorly. So, there's a lot of uses for it, but only just the 1-of in the sideboard. So basically, if you get it, great. If not, no big deal. That's our discard package. In terms of sweepers, I'm actually pretty light on the sweepers because black doesn't have great sweepers, apparently, not in the standard format. And we've got Yahani's Expertise, but I tried playing with it, but it's a 4-mana thing, and as you can see, we're kind of overloaded on the 4-mana plays, so I ended up having to drop it and settle with Golden Demise and a copy of Bantu's Last Reckoning, both of them in the sideboard. So Golden Demise, great against like aggressive aggro, like really early game aggro, mono red or blue white enchantment stuff. It's only good if you can get it off early, but it does work on that front. And Bantu's Last Reckoning is the sweeper of all nature. We do have a single copy of Mastermind's Acquisition, which we'll see later, to kind of fish this out in a pinch. So if we're late game and our opponents have developed a large board, and then we draw this, it's kind of like a 7-mana sweeper. So good and bad, but it's just there as an option. So those are our sweepers. In terms of artifacts, we've got the 2 treasure maps, 1 main board, 1 sideboard. And I tried playing 2 main deck, but it ends up sucking up too much of our time and effort. Like we end up trying to pay for it regularly, but we're kind of starved on mana on turns 3, 4, 5. We really want to be making multiple like a main good play, not powering treasure map and then being 1 mana short for something. So I'm only running the 1 copy of treasure map main deck. Maybe I would go up another treasure map. This might be I was on the fence with it. I tried like multiple copies of treasure map, but it didn't turn out so well. We've got the single Azor's Gateway. I used to run 4-ofs. I used to always run 4-ofs, but it just ended up taking over the deck in the sense that you're really trying to power. Like if you've got 4 copies of Azor, you're really trying to flip it. And if you're trying to flip it, you got to make sure that your converted mana cost spread, like as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, has to be pretty even, and it's not. As you can see, it's pretty jagged, so it's pretty difficult to actually flip it. So if you're not really trying to flip it, then why do you have 4 copies? So I'm really using it just as a 1-of a card filtering. It's kind of like a weird scry. You're drawing an extra card, but you're getting rid of a card. So kind of like a weird loot, but the loot goes away forever, and maybe if you're lucky you happen to flip it, but we're not really aiming to flip it. But sometimes it gets flipped and it does a lot of work for us. You gain that 5 life out of nowhere, which can help through Link's Mastery, so some fringe value there, but it's just mostly a looting card. The next artifact we've got is the Sorceress Spyglass, 2 copies in the sideboard. This is just one of the best answers I've ever seen to a Planeswalker to control decks. It comes in turn 2, and you get to peek at the opponent's hand, which is actually very valuable just to know what kind of plays are coming up next from your opponent. But you absolutely obliterate a Planeswalker. Now, sometimes they've got an answer to it, but it's pretty rare that they have artifact hate even in the sideboard, because artifacts don't usually cause that many problems for people. So Sorcerer's Spyglass does a lot of work. It also can obviously knock out, like, vehicles like Heart of Kirin, and it could knock out Ronus in the sense of like not letting it power up other creatures to enable it, and it's got a bunch of other sorts of uses like that. But the main one is anti-planeswalker, and when you name it on Teferi, it just does a lot of work for you on that front. The next one we've got is a single copy of Golden Guardian. Now this one, I don't know. I kind of giving it some bias because I just love the card, so I'm trying to really aggressively squeeze it in. So if I had to make cuts to the deck, it might be this guy first. But it's actually done some good work. I mean, it's a 4/4 wall, right? So for 4, nothing great there, but we do have the 4 gifted Aetherborns and 2 Gaunties, which all have Death Touch, so it's not hard to just have it fight one of those things and flip, or it could easily fight our 1 copy of Josu Vest in the main deck, or there's multiple ways for it to be transformed into a land. And as a mid to late game deck with lots of mana available, we're able to actually power out a bunch of golems every turn, or just the additional 2 mana can actually help a lot when we're trying to make a big play. Even though we've got 2 Cabal two Cabal Strongholds, we still need all the mana we can get. So yeah, just the 1 copy of Golden Guardian also helps us pull off the Battle of the Bridge removal spell, so good and bad. The next artifact I want to talk about is Noxious Gear Hog. It's just a 1 of 6 mana, 5/4 menace. It's a good threat on the board. It gets rid of their guy, gains you life. It's an artifact. It's got lots of uses. I love it as a combo with Lich's Mastery, Liliana, and Final Parting, which I'll get to later on in the video. But yeah, Noxious Gear Hog, great artifact option. And the last artifact we've got is 2 Aether Sphere Harvesters. So it's a 3/5 flyer, helps you fight against the Rekindling Phoenix. It helps you fight against Glorybringer, the big red decks. It helps you defend against a bunch of random stuff. And if it gains you some life, great. You sometimes normally when you play it and you have a chance to get in or block with it, you just kind of want to use its life gain ability right away, right? I mean, that's how you usually use it. But in this deck, you actually find yourself thinking, you know what? Let's save that energy, and maybe I can get Lich's Mastery out next turn and then gain the life, because then you'll get the 3 cards as well. So pretty good on that side, pretty good on that front. We have a lot of ways to crew it as well. So great artifact in general. So now just a quick rundown of the creatures. We got a couple of copies of Dusk Legion Zealot. I tried playing 4, but it's just, you don't want it late game. You only want it randomly. So if you happen to have it early game, great. It helps you get to that late game. It's a chump blocker, accrues Aether Sphere, draws you a card, of course. It goes without saying that it draws you a card, losing a life. But in the late game, you think, oh, losing a life, you got to exile a card. Yeah, you do. But you get a card, and you're exiling a card, a single card from your graveyard. So it's only 1 card, not so bad. There's a lot of other options that I tested out, like Dark Bargain or the Argyle's Bloodfast, but losing 2 life starts to be pretty painful because you're exiling 2 cards, and sometimes your graveyard's not that populated. You really don't want to be losing your let's say your sacrifice fuel for Lich's Mastery to your draw card effects. So Dusk Legion Zealot is a single card. It's fine. Only the 2 copies. It's fine. We got the full playset of Gifted Aetherborn. What can I say about it? It's an amazing 2-drop. It's amazing in mono black. It's a 2/3 Death Touch lifelink for 2. Just fantastic. It gets you draws cards, Lich's Mastery, etc., etc. I don't think I need to explain it any further. We've got the 2 Gaunties. Now, I used to run just the 1 in the main deck and 1 in the sideboard, but it's really nice to have it reflect your opponent's deck right back at them. So that's like, you play it out there. It helps defend against their creatures because they're probably going to have a bunch of creatures out trying to smash in with it, but it does good to defend. And it's also a good way to poke in. Like, let's say they don't got that, maybe they only have 1 creature, you only got Gaunty. You might as well attack with it because it gets in for the damage. They don't want to lose their creature for it, and you still got the value the moment it came out. And Death Touch again enables your Golden Guardian and whatnot. So pretty good card. Deserves its 2 spots. Now I have 2 Josu Vests, 1 main deck, 1 sideboard, and it's honestly because it's just that damn good. Now, normally I would run just the 1 of in the sideboard and use my what's it called, the Mastermind's Acquisition to fish it out when I need it, when I have all the mana ready to pick it. But when I have the one main deck, I'm now, sometimes I draw it late game. Great, I'll just kick it and run it out there and kick ass. Sometimes but if I happen to draw it early game, I'll run it out there at only 4 mana, and I won't feel bad about doing that because I won't feel like I lost one of my win clauses for later on in the game because I know I still have the one in the sideboard. So that's kind of the logic behind that, and it's actually really that good. I mean, it's a 4 mana 4/5 menace. It's like, it's a Rhino stats, but it's black and it has a very powerful kicker ability. So pretty good card. Try it out. Let me know what you guys think. But it's deserved and earned its spot in the deck. So yeah. Next, we've got a single Dreadshade. Dreadshade, I don't know. Like, I tried running 4 ofs, 3 ofs, 2 ofs, and sometimes it shines, sometimes it doesn't. But it's been most effective for me as a mid to late game finisher card. So basically, I've already fought through a bunch of stuff from the opponent. They're empty-handed. I'm empty-handed. I top deck this asshole. I play it. I try and defend it the best I can because I have tons of mana. Hopefully they can't really just kill it too easily. And it comes in and they have to answer it. So it's a good late game threat, but it hasn't done work for me in the early game. Like on turn 3, I'm not excited to be playing this. It hasn't done work for me on that time. So that's why it's only earned the 1 copy of it. Yeah, 1 copy main deck. That's it. That's all. And sometimes, you don't always get to play it turn 3 anyway. So yeah, just the 1 copy. We also got one of the cards I would have never thought I would have used is Grace Acolyte. Now, this is just normally common fodder for the limited environment, but 5 mana, 3/2 flyer, this guy has done some work. When it comes into play, you gain 3 life and you mill 3 cards. So that's 3 cards in your graveyard to power, or I should say, sacrifice fuel for Lich's Mastery, and you gain 3 life, which is drawing 3 cards if you've got Lich's Mastery out. So pretty good. Pretty good, and it also helps you just get you a little extra life. It's a decent chump blocker. It trades well. You can also get in there if you really needed to. Just the 1 of. I only want to see it mid to late game, so I have just the 1 of. Again, it's not always shine, but sometimes it comes in. I top deck it after a long, hard drawn battle, and it's just like the best thing to see drawn out of my deck. So yeah, try it out and be surprised by it. So yeah, a single copy of this guy, Grace Acolyte. And we've got, of course, the most powerful black creature that I could respect here, Demon Lord Belzenlock, 6 mana, 6/6 flying trample. When it enters the battlefield, draw cards repeatedly until one of them costs 3 mana or less. If it's 4 or greater, you just keep repeating the process. And for every card drawn, you lose a life. Now, that's kind of painful. Sometimes if you happen to draw 4 cards in the late game with Lich's Mastery and suddenly have to exile 4 cards, that does actually pose a problem sometimes. But ideally, you will have, you will only cast it when you're set up nice and well. And, most of the time you're only going to draw 1 card, 2 cards. So 1 card, 2 card into the graveyard, not a big deal. It's also our answer to Lyra Dawnbringer. It's just a 6/6 threat that cannot be bullied around by her. It just beats her in a straight up fight. So pretty good on that front. Of course, the card draw is nice. And Legendary, it's actually been useful. A lot of cast downs are running around these days, and just doesn't do the job against Demon Lord Belzenlock. So that's our last creature. The rest of the decks are enchantments and planeswalkers. So as you may have noticed, we've got the 2 copies of Karn. Now, Karn isn't especially useful in this deck, but it's just a really powerful card. I'm sure you've heard plenty about it before. The card draw is the main use for it we have. Sometimes you might end up creating a 1/1 just to power up Aether Sphere Harvester, but usually you're just drawing cards with it, and you're hoping that the opponent spends time killing it because you don't want them hitting your life. You want them to be hitting that. So sometimes I'll be versus like a mono red deck, and it's like they got me down to 10 life. They've got a couple of creatures out, and I'm like, oh, top deck a card. Let's just play the card. And they end up diverting their focus from beating me down, which would have probably won them the match, to beating him down. And it's just like, oh, okay, like great. Like I just bought myself an extra turn or 2 and a card or 2 on top of that. So a couple of copies of card. Maybe you should go 4 of, but I just don't have the money. I only happen to own 2. So 2 copies. We got a single copy of Liliana. great combo piece with the Final Parting and Noxious Gear Hog. So how does that work? I mean, imagine you've got Lich Mastery out, right? I draw Final Parting. I'm like, holy snap. And I've got a ton of mana through Cabal Stronghold. So I tap a bunch of mana, 10 mana. I pay 5 for Final Parting. I fish out, or I should say tutor out a Liliana to my hand, and then I dump the Noxious Gear Hog to the graveyard. I cast Liliana for the other 5 mana, and reanimate Noxious Gear Hog and kill one of their creatures and gain X life, whatever and draw that many cards. So what did I do for that one Final Parting play? I managed to get a Liliana, have a Planeswalker out. I managed to get a creature out. I managed to kill one of their creatures. I managed to gain life, and you happen to manage to draw cards if you happen to have Lich Mastery out. So wow, what a combo value with Final Parting. It's a great way to, enable that use of the graveyard, and also, even if you happen to already burn through your Gear Hawk, you happen to die to whatever, or Liliana happen to die to whatever, it's a nice way to just put something in your graveyard regardless to let the next card shine. Eldest Reborn, so it's just like having 3 spells over one spell over 3, or I should say 3 spells over 3 turns for 1 card. Pretty popular card, just a one-off. It just gets some work done. It's a good 5 mana play. Again, makes use of our graveyard, which happens to get filled pretty quickly. And yeah, check it out. Use it for yourself. Tell me what you think about it. I'm still iffy about it, but it has done a lot of work. I mean, sometimes it only makes them sacrifice a trump token creature or whatever, but making them discard a card and reanimating something, pretty useful, especially because you only get it late game, right? So as a one-up, you only get it later on. And so we've also got a single copy of Mastermind's Acquisition and Final Parting. So Mastermind's Acquisition, the 4 mana tutor in your deck or outside the game. This is one of our alternate win cons enablers. We could, late game, we happen to draw it. Oh, we got a ton of mana. Boom, we just dump all the mana into this and Torment of Hailfire. Or we dump all the mana into this and Josu Vess, depending on the matchup, depending on the board situation, depending on if you believe there's a counter ready or not or whatever. So very good way to end the game on the spot. You can also get that mana through Razor's Gateway if you happen to flip it. But Final Parting, as I mentioned the combo earlier, another way to tutor out stuff, even just to get your Lich Mastery. So even if it's just turn 4 and you just cast Mastermind's Acquisition, if it's safe to cast it, there's not like a scary board presence or anything, you might just fish out Lich Mastery right away just so that you can play it. That's why I only have the 1 copy. Through all the card draw, the treasure maps, the Azer Gateway, Karn, blah, 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 I ended up only going 1 Lich Master. I started off with like a 3 of, and then I went down to a 2 of, and that was like the right number in terms of frequency. And, but then I just kind of ran out of space for cards, and I thought, you know what, like because sometimes you'll have Lich Mastery out, and then you draw the next Lich Mastery. I'm like, well, that's pretty useless. Like it ends up just being fodder to be exiled for its own ability if it needs be, and that's like not the greatest value. So I just decided to go down to the 1 copy, and it's done its job at 1 of. So yeah, that's about it, I believe. Let me just review. Yeah, that's about it. So that's the deck. We've got, of course, the lands, which I should have probably talked about earlier. We've got 20 basic swamps. We've got 2 Cabal Strongholds and 2 Field of Ruins and 1 Inventor's Fair. Now, Inventor's Fair might seem a bit weird because we're not really like an artifact deck, but we've got a decent number of artifacts. I believe it's like 8, 9, 10 artifacts. And if you're gaining a life a turn, that's an extra card a turn with Lich Mastery. So that is really powerful. It's kind of like having your own Howling Mine there, So pretty powerful. Also just gains you life to help you get to that later into the game. So that's great too. But, it's just a colorless land option. Normally I would only give myself, because of the Cabal Stronghold, I did my own maths and ended up with only allowed to give myself 3, maybe 4 colorless land spots. 2 of them I gave to Field of Ruin. I tested out other cards, but Scavenger Grounds is a no bueno because we actually want to preserve our graveyard as much as possible. So had to not go that. And then we ended up having extra slots, and I was like, okay, maybe I go more Field of Ruins, but you know what, let's try Inventor's Fair. And Inventor's Fair actually did some very valuable things. Gaining that life was relevant. Drawing the extra cards is always relevant. So yeah, that's the mana base. That's the deck. Hope you enjoy it, and stay tuned for the games that are going to come up. Thanks for watching.